You ever see something so perfect, it felt like it was waiting for you? That's how Zendaya felt when she saw the dress. She didn't even mean to find it. She wasn't supposed to be on that street. But the moment her eyes landed on that window, that mannequin, she felt it. A stillness in her chest. A strange pause in the world around her. And in that moment, she knew. This was the dress. Zendaya was the kind of bride who had been dreaming in color. Soft golds, deep greens, wine red flowers, ivory candles, silk fans for her bridesmaids. Kola, her fiancé, had given her the freedom to plan as she pleased, and she didn't waste it. Everything was luxurious, curated, over the top, in the most elegant way. The only thing missing, the one thing that had kept her up at night, was the dress. She'd gone to every boutique in Abuja. Everything was either far too expensive or painfully basic. The kind of dresses that clung in all the wrong places, or looked like bedsheets pretending to be bridal. Her savings were nearly gone. Her tailor had ghosted her, and Kola had traveled out of town for a work conference, leaving her to panic on her own. She was out of time, out of options, and out of patience. Then, that afternoon, on her way home from picking up custom drink tags, Zendaya took a shortcut through a quiet street. It was the kind of road people passed without noticing. The shops were faded, signs broken or missing. The air smelled of dust and frying oil. But right there, in the center of it all, was the window. A mannequin stood behind cracked glass, dressed in the most flawless wedding gown Zendaya had ever seen. The lace sleeves shimmered delicately. The train spilled to the floor like poured milk. Beaded details sparkled faintly, catching sunlight that didn't even seem strong enough to reach them. It was breathtaking, but it wasn't just the dress. It was the face of the mannequin. It wasn't like others. Smooth, blank, lifeless. This one had cheekbones, a nose, painted lashes, lips that were slightly parted, like they'd just finished whispering something, and the eyes. They looked downward, soft and sorrowful. Without meaning to, Zendaya pushed the door open. The wooden frame groaned. A musty scent met her nose. Old paper, faded fabric, something dry and heavy. The shop was dim, narrow, shelves lined with unopened boxes, frayed ribbons, forgotten things. But in the center, that dress glowed like it didn't belong here, like it had followed her from a dream. Then a voice came from the shadows. 15,000 naira. An old man stepped into the light, barefoot, wrapped in a loose wrapper and stained undershirt. One of his eyes was cloudy, but the other stared directly at her. He didn't ask her size, didn't ask what she needed. He just walked to the mannequin, untied the red thread holding its wrist to the stand, and began to remove the dress. Button by button, seam by seam, the lace slid off the mannequin like it had been waiting for someone new. She stepped out into the sunlight, the dress wrapped tightly under her arm. The street was quiet again, like nothing had happened, like the shop had never been open at all. Her hands trembled slightly. From excitement, she told herself. Not nerves, not that odd feeling in her chest, just joy, relief. She had finally found it. She pulled out her phone and called Kola. He answered on the third ring, voice groggy from his trip. He was still out of town for a work retreat, some conference he'd promised he'd survive for her sake. "Babe?" "Kola," she said, her smile wide. "I found it. I finally found the dress." "No way," he said, laughing. "That's amazing. Is it everything you wanted?" "More," she whispered. "It's like it was waiting for me." He exhaled slowly on the other end of the line. "I can't wait to see it, and to see you in it." "You will," she said, her voice softening. "You will." Oh, but he never would. She took the dress home like it was fragile, not in quality, but in meaning. She didn't rush. She didn't try the dress on right away, just laid it gently on the bed, still wrapped in brown paper, and sat beside it for a long time. The string was knotted tightly. The folds were sharp and deliberate. For a second, it didn't feel like a dress. It felt like something wrapped, for burial. She hadn't even tried it on before buying it. It was too good a deal, 15,000 naira, which was barely $10 in her head. She told herself she could get it adjusted later if it didn't fit. All she knew was that if she didn't buy it, someone else would, and she couldn't risk losing something that meant. She waited until morning. Let the daylight ease her nerves. Let the playlist fill the air. The night before had been strange, but sunlight made everything feel foolish. Superstition, nerves, stress. She shook it off. This was her dream dress, and it had only cost 15,000 naira. She had won. That's all she needed to remember. The moment she untied the string, the scent of the dress filled the room. Not perfume, not fabric softener, just old, like dried flowers sealed in a book. She unfolded the paper slowly, hands trembling, not from fear, but from awe. The lace was even more detailed than she remembered. The beading sparkled like water catching light. It looked untouched by time or wear, like it had been waiting in silence. She slipped it on carefully, afraid to damage it. The fabric clung to her body like memory, fluid, soft, knowing. It was heavier than it looked, but not uncomfortable. The lace hugged her arms. The bodice held her like a hand at her back. She turned toward the mirror and reached for the zipper. It caught halfway. She tugged gently, then a little harder. The zipper resisted, not stuck, just reluctant. Like it was thinking, like it hadn't decided yet. Finally, it slid all the way up with one smooth pull. The moment it closed, something shifted. Not in the room. In her. Zendaya faced the mirror. She gasped. It was her, yes, but not fully. The dress fit like it had been sewn onto her skin. There were no folds, no gaps. The sleeves hugged perfectly. The waist knew her, but her face in the mirror looked softer, paler. Her lips fuller, like she'd applied gloss she didn't remember putting on. And her eyes. Her eyes didn't look back the same. She blinked. The reflection blinked too, but half a second too slow. She laughed nervously and stepped back. The train followed with a drag, even though she hadn't moved enough to pull it. She reached back to unzip the dress and stopped. The zipper wouldn't move. Her fingers scraped against it. Her nails slipped. She tried again. Nothing. A loose thread at the neckline caught her eye. It was barely visible, tucked beneath the lace. She touched it. The fabric shifted slightly and revealed a thin, dark red stitch beneath, like blood sealed into the seam. She flinched and stepped away from the mirror, but the reflection stayed close, closer than it should have. That night, Zendaya didn't sleep. She lay on top of the covers in the same dress, still zipped, still stuck. The fabric clung to her body like it was pulsing. Not visibly, not dramatically, just a faint awareness that it was present. Even in silence, even in stillness, she drifted in and out of sleep, her mind flickering like a light that couldn't stay on. And then, sometime after midnight, the dream came. She was in a different room, not her bedroom. The walls were older, cracked, shadowed. A large wooden mirror stood in front of her, carved with vines and flowers and faces. Strange faces. Candles burned on both sides, their flames wavering but never dying. She stood in front of the mirror, wearing the same dress. But her hands weren't hers. Her skin was a little lighter, her fingers thinner, her breathing slower. She leaned closer, and the reflection smiled gently. A quiet, worn smile. The kind that hides more than it shows. And then the girl in the mirror whispered a name. Adaora. Zendaya's eyes flew open. Her room, her ceiling, her breath. But the name was still in her mouth, lingering like a taste. Adaora. She hadn't heard it in the dream. She had spoken it, like she already knew it, like it belonged to her now. The dress still wouldn't unzip. She turned toward the mirror again and studied her face. She looked older somehow, not aged, just further away from herself, like she was standing at a distance inside her own reflection. She picked up her phone. Her fingers moved fast. She typed the name. Adaora wedding missing. And there it was. A 10-year-old article, a photo of a girl standing in a field dressed in white. Lace sleeves, a soft train. A caption beneath it read, "Bride disappears the night before her wedding. Last seen in her gown. Dress never recovered." Zendaya dropped the phone. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Her ears rang, but the dress remained still. Quiet, undisturbed, like it was watching her panic. With patience, she stood and turned toward the door. She needed help. Someone to unzip it. Someone to see what she was seeing. Someone to say, "You're just tired. It's nothing." Kioma was the first name that came to her mind. Her best friend, her maid of honor, the only one who knew her moods even before she said a word. Kioma would come. She always did. Zendaya opened her mouth to call out. "Kioma," she tried to say, but her voice cracked halfway. Not from fear, from distance. It was like speaking through a tunnel, like her lungs were somewhere deeper, farther, not fully hers. The name came out sounding warped, thinner, quieter, a breath wearing her voice like a costume. She covered her mouth, stumbling back. Her heart was racing, but her reflection stood perfectly still. She stared at the door. She thought about calling again, about grabbing her phone, about screaming, but she didn't. She just stood there, and by morning, Zendaya was gone. The door to her apartment was still locked from the inside. Her shoes sat neatly by the mat. Her wedding file, color-coded and stacked, lay untouched on the table. Her phone, fully charged, still vibrated with unread messages. But the dress and Zendaya had vanished like smoke. There were no screams, no broken glass, no signs of a struggle, just absence. Her best friend Kioma came by around 10. She knocked, called out, waited. She joked at first, texting, "Don't make me bust down this door with your Akara." But when the silence stretched too long, the laughter in her voice thinned. She called Kola. He drove home that night. And by dawn, the search had begun. Flyers were printed. Friends reposted old photos. A radio jingle called out her name like a prayer. But some people already knew. They whispered behind closed doors, the way aunties whisper when they know something you don't. They remembered the old name, Adaora, the bride who vanished, the dress that was never found. Now they said Zendaya's name the same way. Quiet, heavy, like it might carry something with it if spoken too loud. There was no funeral, no farewell, only questions and silence. But the city moved on, the way it always does. And then, the window appeared again. A dusty corner shop with cracked glass and a fading sign tucked between a closed tailor and a phone repair kiosk. The kind of place you'd miss if you blinked. But Esha didn't blink. She wasn't looking for anything, just killing time before her next dress fitting, her real one. Then she saw it. The mannequin, the lace, the soft white glow behind the glass. 15,000 naira. Cash only. No refunds. She didn't hesitate. She walked in. The vendor didn't smile. He didn't have to. She paid for it in cash. 15,000 naira. Then she posted a picture on her Instagram story and WhatsApp status with the caption, "Just bought the dress of my dreams, can't wait to wear it. God is good." The messages rolled in almost instantly. "Stunning. You found it? Girl, you're glowing. Can't wait to see you in it." And Isha replied to them all. "About to try it on. See you guys soon." But no one ever did, because Isha never came back online. I hope this story reminds you that some things are cheap for a reason. Zendaya saw the face in the mannequin, felt the cold silence in the shop, heard the way the man said nothing, and still, she bought it, didn't try it on, just took it home, convinced it was meant to be. Now she's gone. No trace, no answers, just a name people speak in whispers. And Esha? She followed the same path. Didn't ask questions, didn't try it on, posted a photo, replied to her friends, said, "See you soon." But no one saw her again. So take this as your warning. Just because something fits doesn't mean it's yours. Just because it's on sale doesn't mean it's safe. And just because someone wore it before you doesn't mean they ever took it off. That dress doesn't stay in closets. It stays hungry. And if you're listening to this thinking, it's just a story, well, that's what Zendaya thought too. So remember, cheap can cost you everything.